Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Erik with Sprucehill here. I can see we've got a whopping 2 viewers. I'll take what I can get. I'm so excited that anybody's here with me tonight at all. It's Erik with Sprucehill here. I can see we've got a whopping 2 viewers. I'll take what I can get. I'm so excited that anybody's here with me tonight at all. It's Erik with Sprucehill here. I can see
One second, I got an issue going on here.
I hope that solved the issue. I was getting some feedback going on in my headset here, so not quite sure what that was all about, but that's kind of annoying. It's the joys of figuring out how to do this stuff in the first place. So, as promised, tonight we're going to start off tonight's stream with a conversation and a little tutorial about what to be looking for in your construction contract when you are ready to sign on the dotted line. So, let's dive right in, shall we? The first thing that is the most, well, they're all really important if I'm being honest with you. So one of the first things you're going to be wanting to look for is a detailed scope of work in that contract. Now, that doesn't necessarily specifically need to be physically in the contract. It can be referenced to a subsequent document or something like that. But it's really, really important to make sure you know what you're agreeing to. And I would suggest also making sure that you ask about any exclusions, right? There's a lot, I mean, it happens, but sometimes people in my line of work intentionally leave things out of their scope of work or out of their contract so that they can create change orders in the future. Unscrupulous a little bit, yes, but it happens. And so be sure to make sure that your contract has a fairly decent scope of work. Now, I would not get as granular as to ask how many nails they're going to use or how many sheets of plywood or how many 2x4s. But certainly, you know, like a general semblance of re of a bathroom. I mean, that's probably okay. But I mean, maybe you might want to be a little bit more specific than that and be more like gut bathroom to stud, fix any rot or any issues that come up, and then consider doing some sort of like description of what they're going to be putting in. Certainly you want to be making sure that you are understanding what is going to be happening to your home, right? I mean, this is the most important part or most important piece of the puzzle, and that's why we want to make sure that we have that documented. So detailed scope of work, right? Get some specifics. You know, if you're really wanting to get down to the nitty gritty, don't be afraid to ask for specifics as far as what kind of paint somebody is going to use. I mean, you can ask for that, right? I mean, Benjamin Moore Aura is definitely a better paint than like Behr paint from Home Depot or something like that. So, you know, don't be afraid to ask for more details to be in your contract, because really and truly at the end of the day, the devil is in the details, and everybody is all lovey-dovey and happy until something goes wrong. And that's what the contract is there for, is to cover off for everybody's protection, contractor and owner alike, to make sure that we don't get burned, A, for me, by our clients, or B, for you, by your contractor. So just be aware that you want to make sure that you have a detailed scope of work in that contract. Now, the next piece is a payment schedule. This is going to vary from contractor to contractor. And there's really no right or wrong in terms of how people do it. My only suggestion is that you avoid monthly billing cycles. For example, like I know a lot of people in this industry go on monthly billing cycles, and holy smokes, I mean, it is so easy to have your project go way over budget and you not know it. I mean, the amount, if you've got, like, let's just, for easy math, like, let's say that one person on site is $1,000 a day. I mean, that's on the high side, but let's say, well, let's go on the low side. Let's say they're $500 a day, which is definitely on the low side. So say one person's $500 a day, 500 times 20 days in a week is 10K. And that's just one person, right? So you can really find yourself over budget and in a real pickle if you're only getting invoiced once a month and you're not on some sort of fixed price contract. You know, here at Sprucehill, we bill once a week. I think it's the best way to make sure that our project managers can stay on top of our client budgets and that we're making sure that we're keeping our trades to account, keeping our team to account, and knowing where things are going, right? So, you know, the takeaway is just make sure you have a payment schedule. Especially if you're doing fixed price, which, you know, lots of people do, make sure that those payments are tied to some sort of milestone, not a date in a month, right? Like, you want to be making sure that you're paying at, say, like, excavation and hole dug if you're building a new house and you're on a fixed price, or framing inspection passed, right? Like, I mean, these are all major milestones and definitely someplace that you would consider making large payments. So again, let's make sure that we are talking about that. The other piece that's in there is the deposit amount, right? I would suggest a deposit, depending on the size of the project, I might add, right? On larger projects, 10 to 15% on the high side of things. And a larger project in Erik land anyways is, project over, say, $200,000, $300,000. That 10 to 15% number works. You know, as we get closer to the $200,000 mark, you know, a higher percentage makes more sense because oftentimes those projects are able to be completed so quickly. The burn rate is so fast. And so actually here at Sprucehill, what we do on our deposit side of things is we just kind of figure out what the weekly burn rate is and we quadruple that. And that's the number that we use for our deposit. We just want to make sure that we are covered in case a client chooses not to pay us. We want to make sure that we have enough cash in the bank to make sure that our trade partners and us get paid. So definitely keep an eye on that deposit, and also make sure that you understand how that deposit's going to be handled and dealt with. And all of those details should be itemized in the contract that you sign. Holdbacks, you know, there is the Builders Lien Act here in Canada. We, for example, we haven't done holdbacks. I think actually that's not true. We've done a holdback on one project over the last 20 years. Again, it's totally client driven, but you know, there's nothing as a client, there's nothing asking you to ask for holdbacks, and also to ask your contractor to get statutory declarations, or we call them stat decks in the business here, to get a stat deck so that you know that everybody's been paid, so your house doesn't get liened, which is obviously a pain in the ass and nobody wants. The next thing that I want you looking for in that construction contract is some formal version of a change order process, right? I have yet to do a project in my 20 years where there haven't been changes to the scope of work midstream. It happens all the time. Is what it is, not a big deal. But you as a consumer, you want to make sure that it is really understandable and really clear how change orders are going to be handled. I would suggest that, like, at least they're in writing and you get some form of confirmation that you've approved it. Now, you could go as formal as making sure that these change orders are getting signed. I mean, truthfully, an email back saying, I approve of this change order, I think is sufficient if you've got a good relationship with your builder and you feel like you can trust them. Again, you know, if you're having to go to DocuSign and DocuSign every little thing, that just, you know, increases the administrative burden. And I don't know if it really makes that much difference in a court of law, to be honest with you. Judges are going to pretty much always side with the homeowner over the contractor, and most of the time anyways. Just make sure that you understand the change order process. Make sure that you understand if there's any sort of special change order fee, if there's any administration fee for that change order, and just, make sure you understand how change orders are going to be handled, because, for the folks that, try to leave things out of the contract and then leave the opportunity to have change orders in the future, they may possibly, likely, really jack up their profit on that change order because they can. And that's the unfortunate facts of the matter. Now, the next wording and the next things that we want to be looking for in that construction contract are realistic timelines and delays, right? So what is substantial completion? What does that mean to you and to the contractor? For us, substantial completion means that it's safe for you to move in. Like, that's substantial completion. Full completion means we are off the project. We're no longer coming to site anymore. And that's the end of that. Like, that's what full completion is for us. Substantial is the home is safe for you to move in. And safe, well, I mean, for us anyway, safe means like it's pretty much done. But again, make sure you ask, right? Get clarity as to what does substantial completion mean to you, because I'm sure the more people you talk to, the more versions of truth you are going to get. And I would suggest, just a little bit of a rabbit hole here. Do not move back into your home until it is like 98% done. I can't, like, people never believe me when I tell them this, but I am telling you, the second you move in, production grinds to a halt. Like, if your production is going at 100 miles an hour while you are in swing and you've got people coming and going, even if that 100 miles an hour is like really, really slow because you're working with a contractor that's not so organized. But like, if that's their 100 miles an hour, whatever the case may be, the speed of progress of your project, it literally, it gets knocked down by a factor of 10, possibly even 50 once the client has moved in. Nobody wants to come to your house once you've moved in and work on things. They don't want to get in your way. They certainly don't want to move your personal effects to do the work that they need to do. So don't move in too early, folks. Trust me on that. Pro tip, trust Erik. Believe me on that. The next thing that we want to look for in that realistic timeline and delay situation, or the differentiation between excusable and inexcusable delays. Just make sure you understand what those are and look for that language in the contract. There's also a possibility that there could be penalties in that contract as well. I mean, I don't know if you need those or you don't need them or whatever else, but I mean, certainly be aware of the fact that you could ask for penalties, but I mean, that could go both ways. I don't know. It seems a little bit punitive, but at the end of the day, you as a homeowner need to protect yourself. And so, perhaps depending on how you feel about things, you might demand some form of penalty so that you can be compensated if your home takes longer to be renovated or built than you were originally told, right? I certainly would say that, like, if you're told that your home is going to take 12 months to build and it ended up taking 18 months and you really made no changes to the scope of work, well, I think it would be fair for you to be asking for compensation, because you obviously need to be paying rent to live somewhere else over that time period. So, don't be afraid to be a bit of a jerk in that situation, because you need to get compensated for that. Somebody else's incompetence is not your responsibility. TM Erik Jensen. Sorry, I watched too much Modern Family with my kids. Love that show. All right, so moving along here. Allowances. Check to make sure they're realistic. And if you're not sure if they're realistic, get some second opinions. Talk to some additional people, right? But if there's allowances in your budget, make sure that they seem reasonable to you. Ask, somebody else who's done a renovation We all have people that we can talk to and get feedback from. Don't be afraid to ask questions and make sure that you're confident in the information that you're given. One of my first clients when I first started in the business, Gurval, if you're out there, thank you for giving me this pearl of wisdom. He said, trust and verify. And he will always say, Eric, I trust what you're telling me. I just need to verify that it's right. And that always stuck with me. I always thought that was a pretty clever way of putting it. So trust and verify, make sure those allowances make sense and are actually going to be sufficient to keep you afloat and not going too far over budget. Now, the next thing that we want to see in our contract is who's responsible for permits and inspections, right? Too often we're hearing more tales of, contractors that were supposed to get permits said they got a permit but didn't. Make sure that who's responsible for getting that permit is documented and that you know who is going to be taking care of that. And that really ought to find its way into your contract, okay? Make sure, don't be afraid to ask for these details. You're not being a jerk to make sure that this stuff is included in your contract. You're transacting on in some cases, a multi-million-dollar transaction. Make sure the details that are pertinent to the project are captured in your contract. Get it in writing all the time. All right. Next topic, dispute resolution. If something goes wrong, we need to have a roadmap as to what's going to happen to deal with that dispute resolution. Look for some sort of step-by-step clause or a third-party mediator in the contract. Make sure in your contract that you understand how any sort of dispute, should it come up with your contractor, is going to be dealt with. It's really, really important to protect yourself. Again, obviously none of us go into these agreements planning on having a problem. That's we obviously wouldn't do that. However, what's the old saying? Plan for the worst, hope for the best. So same thing goes here, right? Make sure that you know what is going to happen and what mechanisms you have to deal with your contractor if you find yourself in dispute with what they're doing. And the dispute could be the quality of the work. It could be the quality of the materials. It could be the timeline that's happening, whatever the case may be. Make sure that you have some sort of mechanism to discuss disputes with your contractor. Dispute resolution. All right. Next up, warranty coverage. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly millions of dollars. How are you protected? How are you to know that your brand new Kohler toilet is going to be replaced when it stops working? Make sure that that is in your construction contract. The warranty section of a reasonably decent contract, in my experience, is pretty freaking long because there's a lot of details and there's a lot of nuance as to what goes on in there. So just make sure that you understand the warranty and that there is warranty language in your contract. And I will remind everybody, a warranty is only as good as long as the business that you're getting the warranty from stays in business. So, when you're hiring somebody, you want to also be considering how much longer is this person going to be in business for? That's the unfortunate truth of the matter. It is what it is. And, people are pretty quick to close up their pocketbooks once they've closed up shop. So just make sure you really understand what the warranty details are and that you feel safe and secure in the warranty. In the same breath, also be reasonable. An example that I often use is if you go to Home Depot and buy a toilet, and then you get on the phone, you go to Facebook or Google and you find a plumber you want to hire, and that plumber comes in and they install the toilet for you and they do a fine job, but there's a leak or there's some sort of patent defect with the toilet. Well, the plumber is going to have to come back, remove the toilet for you. You're going to have to drive the toilet back down to Home Depot, get a new toilet. Well, guess what? I'm telling you right here and now, Home Depot ain't paying that plumber to come back and install the toilet. So just be reasonable with those sorts of things, right? Like these retailers, suppliers are typically not going to pay for the labor to remove and replace or fix failed goods. And that's pretty common. It has been for years, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect anything different. So just be aware of those sorts of details. Just please make sure in that construction contract there is some language in there about your warranty. Now, sliding along to our next point of topic, insurance and licenses. This is probably the number one thing that I think a lot of people overlook and don't pay enough attention to, right? It is mission freaking critical to make sure that whomever is coming on your property has sufficient liability insurance to cover any sort of physical, any sort of like damage or loss to the home, and or if somebody random gets hurt on site, which leads me to the next piece in terms of here in BC anyways, we have WorkSafe BC. If you're hiring somebody in BC, all you need to do is go to the WorkSafe BC website. Super easy. If you'd like me to show you how to do that, you can drop me a message in the chat and I can pull up the WorkSafe BC website and show you where to find that. It's the easiest freaking thing to do. You're going to want to go to WorkSafe BC and you're going to want to create a clearance letter. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. It's easy to do. And right then and there, you will know whether or not that person that you are going to have come on your property has at least worker coverage. And that is critically important, because if they don't and somebody gets injured on your property, the responsibility lies to you, the homeowner, to deal with that injured person. And that's going to come out of your home insurance and then possibly out of you personally. So just make sure you've done your due diligence. And honestly, people, it is not, and it should not be a stretch to ask for certificate of liability insurance and or WorkSafe BC coverage. Like, this is not a big ask. In fact, if you ask somebody for that information, if they cannot produce that for you in 24 hours, don't hire them. Don't hire them. I mean, that is the lowest of low hanging fruit for a professional company that knows what the hell they're doing. I mean, honestly, like if you call Sprucehill and say, "Hey, Erik, we need a copy of your liability insurance and WorkSafe BC coverage," I think my team could get that to you in an hour, maybe less. I mean, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. And people should know where it is, because this is information that people should be asking for and checking in on a regular basis. So don't hesitate to ask for certificate of liability insurance and WorkSafe BC coverage, or wherever you might live, some form of worker coverage. I'm not sure how it works in the States or Alberta or whatever else. I'm very sure how it works here in BC. Liability insurance, WorkSafe BC. Make sure you check. Don't trust them when they say they've got it. Demand to see a PDF or physical copy of that sucker. And keep a record for yourself. So prefer to get it in PDF by email. Good tip there. The last thing that we want to be looking for is a termination clause. And what that means is, if you need to make sure that you have some sort of knowledge of how to deal with things if the contractor decides to abandon the job, if they fail to pay subtrades, or if they persistently or ignoring what the drawings and plans are telling them to do, if they're just doing their own thing, right? You need to make sure that you know how to terminate and that there is a termination clause in that contract. And then that notice period, usually 7 days is probably the most that I would really give somebody. And a 7-day duration for issuing a termination letter, that's pretty reasonable, right? It shouldn't take on, it shouldn't take on, or sorry, it shouldn't take too long to get somebody that you want off the job. Like that should not take too long. So make sure you've got that termination clause in your contract. So let's roll through those one more time here, okay? We want, number 1, detailed scope of work. Number 2, a payment schedule tied to milestones, or if it's not milestones, you know, it should really be like every 2 weeks, preferably once a week, so that you don't get caught going over budget extravagantly. You can still go over budget, trust me, but you'll know it's coming. All right. Number 3, change order process. What is it? Right? Make sure you understand what that is, and don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, most of our clients, I find, usually end up sending us an email with some questions about what a term or what a section of our contract means or doesn't mean. I love that. Like, I mean, I feel like sometimes people think that they might be being annoying or something like that. No. Like, for me, in my mind, like, you're doing your due diligence. You're making sure that you're being protected. And like, you know, if somebody's annoyed by you doing your due diligence, that should probably be like a really, really big red flag. I should have like had a red flag here that I could wave for that one. Anyways, yeah, like, anyways, you know where I'm going with that. Did we say change order process again already? Can't remember if I did, but if I didn't, change order process, make sure you've got knowledge of how change orders are going to be handled and how those are going to be dealt with. Number 4, make sure that there's realistic timeline and delays. For example, if somebody tells you that they are going to build you a house in 4 months in Vancouver, BC, I would be very skeptical of that. Conversely, if they told you it was going to take 4 years, either that's a really big, really fancy house, or they're just incompetent. So, I mean, it's what it is. Number 5, allowances. Make sure you understand what the allowances are about. Make sure that they're realistic. Make sure you understand what happens when things go over or under budget. Just get clarification and ask the questions. That's all. Number 6, permits and inspections. Who's dealing with them? Who's pulling them? Who's paying for them? All of that sort of stuff. Make sure you understand how that works. Number 7, dispute resolution. Number 8, warranty coverage. Number 9, insurance and licenses. And as we just spent a ton of time talking about, termination clause. Make sure you know how to get rid of somebody if you don't want them on the site anymore. Interestingly enough, it's surprising how many contracts don't actually have a termination clause in them. So keep an eye out for that in your contract. All right, that's I'm almost exactly on time for my half an hour planned spiel for this evening. I'm hoping that I'm seeing everybody's messages here in my fancy schmancy little OBS studio screen here. Yeah, anybody out there have any questions for me? Anything that anybody is wanting to know about, learn about? I love to answer your questions. You just got to type them. I need some like hold music or something like that. just keep plunking along here. Well, if I'm being totally honest with you, I'm getting no questions, so I'm just going to make some up. And when I say I'm going to make some up, I'm really not going to do that, because who does that in this day and age anymore? Of course, I asked AI to do it for me, so here goes. The first question that AI came up for tonight: fixed price versus cost plus, which is actually safer for me? Now, that is a very interesting question. So let's dive into that. I personally think cost plus is safer, or maybe, a somewhat blended version of cost plus. And let me explain. While some people might think that fixed price means that they are going to have a fixed price, it has been my experience, and based off of a lot of feedback that I've heard from a lot of people over the years, fixed price is never fixed price. And inevitably, when any sort of change orders come up or anything like that, those type of contractors with fixed price business models, what their game plan is generally is to make sure they make a healthy profit on change orders. Like, that is where the money is made for fixed price contractors. It's change orders. That's my opinion. I stick to it. The other issue I have with fixed price is it really it benefits the contractor to cut corners. So if a contractor's on a fixed price for you, their motivating factor is to maximize profit. And the way they can do that is by minimizing costs. And the way they can do that is by minimizing the quality of the work they do for you. So while I understand that cost plus can be a little bit scary in terms of like not having any sort of absolute wall to go up against, I still think that a cost plus contract actually does a better job of making sure you get a good finished product. If all you care about is cost, if that's the only factor that you care about, even then I still think fixed prices, it's ugly. I don't like the motivating factor to cut corners. I'm not a fan of that personally. I'm not a fan. So I would suggest cost plus. Sprucehill does a bit of a blended model. We charge our clients for our time, and then we obtain and get fixed prices from our trade partners, and our clients pay us to hold our trade partners accountable for doing a great job for them. And that's the model we work under. I think it works really well. We don't hit any home runs on any particular job, but we also tend not to lose money as long as my team does what they're supposed to do, which they do 99.9% of the time. All right, so how do I stop scope creep from blowing the budget? Now, that is a great freaking question. Stop doing it, or be honest with yourself and be honest with your contractor before you start construction. It really, a lot of times, and we see it happen all the time with us, clients going into a project will be like, well, I only want to spend this. I only want to do this scope of work, And then our team gets on site and they meet our trade partners and the people that work here at Sprucehill. And I mean, I'm going to pump my own tires, because why the hell not? Yes, Team Sprucehill is awesome. Everybody that works at Sprucehill is just a fantastic human, and you are not going to ever find a team of people that cares more about the work that they do than Team Sprucehill. Sprucehill cares. That's all I'm going to tell you. So, sorry, I went on a bit of a rabbit hole there. The only way to stop scope creep is to not do it. Be honest and be finite with what you want your scope to be, and hold to it. Or don't, and just spend more money. But that's really those are your two options, is to manage that. So we got a question in the chat here. How is it moving from managing a small team to a larger team? I guess for anybody else that might be watching this after the fact, Sprucehill, we have gone from a team of 7 in 2020, 2021 to 35 today. So there's been a lot of learning to do, for sure. I would say the most important thing is learning how to delegate and trusting your team to do the work that they're being paid to do, and also understand that how other people are going to solve problems is not necessarily going to be how you solve a problem, and you got to be okay with that. And I still struggle with that last one a little bit, but every day I'm getting better, and I've got the benefit of working with a phenomenal business coach, Colin Cox. If you're looking for a coach, absolute full send plug for Colin Cox. He is an absolutely phenomenal business coach. Really enjoy working with him. But I would say, like, just having to let go of things is the other piece of getting to a larger team, and understanding that, like, there's going to be things that I really enjoy doing that I just have to let go of because I just can't be everywhere. I would say the other thing that's kind of weird is not necessarily really knowing everybody on the team. I've been used to having a smaller organization, and as you grow, it's just not possible to have a really deep, meaningful relationship, with every person on the team anymore. But the people that I do get the chance to interact with on a regular basis, I work pretty hard to create and maintain deep, meaningful relationships with them, because I really like people, and I really like the people that I get to work with every day. We got another question in the chat here. What maintenance would you recommend people do to maintain their homes on a yearly basis? Get this question a lot. It's a fantastic question. Change your furnace filters. Please change your furnace filters at least once a year. I would suggest doing it twice a year, but at least once a year, change your furnace filter. The other things that we want to be doing are clearing out our gutters and downspouts, making sure that those are all working properly. Theoretically, you're supposed to check your sumps outside and make sure that they're not full of debris and that they're still free flowing and working okay. I don't know a lot of people that open up those concrete lids in their front yards, but you should. You should make sure that it's clean in there and that everything is working the way that it's supposed to be. If you have a home with a full basement in North Van anyways, well, actually I would say all of the Lower Mainland, if you have a home with a full basement, it is almost guaranteed that that sucker is getting pumped to the district IC. Absolutely. I don't care how cheap you are. Put your cheapness in the corner for a second and pay a plumber or do it yourself, but make sure that you're inspecting and making sure that your sump pumps are operational and that your sump is clean and free of debris. Sometimes rocks spill in there, whatever the case may be. You really, really, really need to make sure that those sump pumps don't stop working, especially in the glorious months that are November, December, and January here in beautiful British Columbia, especially Vancouver, British Columbia. My God, it hasn't stopped raining for the last 3 days. What else do we care about on the outside? Downspouts, eaves, patio drains, right? Anything that's going to stop your stop water from going away from your home, you want to make sure you deal with and clean up. We want the water to go away. We don't want the water to stay. So make sure that you are giving water every opportunity to disperse from your house. I said disperse, not disperse, just for the record. It was a D. I'm telling you it was a D. On the inside of our home, again, you know, we really should be having a HVAC company come and service our heat pumps and air handlers or furnaces once a year. You know, the last thing that you want is for your mechanical systems to stop working when you need them most, which is usually when it's raining and cold outside. So make sure that you are having your mechanical systems serviced once a year. You know, if you want to be really nitpicky and a really, really good homeowner, go around and oil your hinges once a year so you don't have squeaky doors. Of course, if you hire Sprucehill to build your home for you, we do our best to remember to put in ball bearing hinges so they never squeak. But if you don't have ball bearing hinges, make sure you're oiling those suckers so you don't get squeaky hinges. The next question I have here is a 50% deposit normal? And my response to that is it depends on the size of the project. Because I can tell you right here and now, any project under $100,000 for us, we're going to take a 50% deposit. Things happen too fast. Money gets spent too fast. Like, we're going to take a 50% deposit under $100,000. But as the projects get larger, that dollar value will definitely reduce. So, is it normal for a 50% deposit? I'm going to say no. Is it possible? Is it a red flag? If it is, I'm also going to say no. It really is project size dependent. And you know, that's that. What exactly constitutes a change order, and does it cost extra just to ask for a price? So it depends on the contract that you have and the person that you're dealing with. It wouldn't be unreasonable for a contractor to charge you money to get you a price. I mean, somebody has to do the work and somebody has to pay that person's wage to go out and get those numbers for you and put it all together and make sure the numbers are correct and it works and da. So I would say it's totally reasonable for a contractor to charge you to put together a change order price. But I think that answers that question, honestly. All right, the next question that AI came up with for me here: how do I enforce the completion date? Context. Everyone has heard horror stories of a 3-month renovation taking a year. They want to know if they can put financial penalties, liquidated damages in the contract. The answer is you could try. Again, if you're dealing with if you're dealing with somebody like me, I'd be like, okay, let's talk about that. Now, if you're going to penalize me for being late on delivering your project, I get to win when I'm early. It's got to go both ways, right? So, I mean, I don't think it's unfair and unreasonable to ask for a penalization clause in a contract if people finish late. Again, though, what we have to be careful and conscientious of is, you know, there are some things that are outside of your contractor's control. And I mean, I can speak firsthand to this. I'm dealing with this right now on several projects where we're just dealing with terrible city policy. I mean, that's really all I can lay it down to is just absolutely abysmal policies and service. Like, it's really what it boils down to. And until something changes, until maybe there's a personnel change or a lot of personnel change, you know, I don't really see that getting fixed anytime in the near future. But yeah, I mean, and that's well outside of our control. I mean, do as much as you can and work as hard as you can to do what you need to do. And yeah, I mean, the problem is, at the government level, like, there's just no accountability. Nobody, like, if somebody does a terrible job or makes a horrible decision, there's no repercussions for that person. So, I mean, we do our best for our customers. That's all. That's all I can say, and that's all we can do. Can the builder pause my project to work on another job? No, not unless you give them permission. Like, but I don't know why you would. Like, I can't even believe somebody would do. I mean, I know what happens, but I mean, if your contractor says they got to go work on another job, you say, sorry, dude, no, you need to finish my job, and then you can go work on the other job. Like, that's how it works here. Get my house done, and then you can go do your next job. But until then, I need you here every day, all day, getting my home complete. And you know what? Honestly, I mean, I think sometimes Canadians are too nice. And on that, I feel like, there's a lot of people that don't stand up for themselves enough and push back. I mean, that is absolute nonsense. It's a great question that AI came up with. I'm like, I'm angry just thinking about the fact that people do these sorts of things to people. It's not okay. Do not let your contractor do that to you. All right, so we've got another question in the chat here. What should you budget for in terms of a contingency when starting a renovation? That is a great question. We coach our clients to have at least a 15% contingency. But I would say if you are really trying to make sure that you are protected, 15 to 25% is what you should have in your mind for a contingency to make sure that you've got enough cash in the bank to get your project to the finish line. 15 to 25% is a reasonable contingency to make sure that, if you make changes or if there's, issues on site or whatever else, that they get dealt with. Listen, if you don't think that you're going to need some contingency on a construction project, you're dreaming and you're disillusional. Like, you are literally, you're out of your mind. You always want to have some contingency. You always need to make sure you've got some protection there. Really, really, really important. Great question. Thank you. Okay, so now my next question from AI. What counts as a legitimate delay? Context, what's the difference between weather delays and we forgot to order the windows? Well, one is relatively easily avoidable and the other is not. I mean, obviously, I think what constitutes a legitimate delay is something that could have reasonably been foreseen by the contractor. I'll say that again. An unacceptable delay is something that could have been reasonably foreseen by the contractor. And so, forgetting to order the windows, that ain't on the list. Forgetting to order flooring, that isn't on the list. Ordering the flooring from Europe and the ship sinking on the way across the ocean, well, that's a reasonable delay. Ordering your tile from France and it getting put onto a train in Quebec and the train derailing, destroying all of your tile, that's a reasonable delay. And in case you're not picking up what I'm throwing down, these things have happened. So that would be, to me, what your difference is between reasonable and unreasonable delays. Let's get into some legal and liability questions here. If a worker gets hurt on my property, can they sue me? It's a good question. I think the short answer is yes, if the person that they're working for does not have WorkSafe BC coverage. Right? If people don't have WorkSafe coverage, then they really shouldn't be on your property. Who actually owns the plans and the drawings? Well, I mean, I think that varies from firm to firm, but personally, as far as I'm concerned, if you've paid for them, they're yours. Otherwise, what's the point in paying for them? I know that that's not necessarily the policy of every designer and architect out there, but that is, I don't think, rational or reasonable. What? Why am I paying you to draw something if it's not my property when you're done? I mean, that's literally, I'm hiring you to create that good for me, so it should be my property once I have finished paying you. Now, until you've paid the final bill, I mean, there would be grounds for somebody to stand on to say like, no, those are my drawings until you've paid the bill. I'm fine with that, but otherwise, no. What happens if the builder ghosts me or goes bankrupt? Well, that is why you want to make sure you have some clarity in that termination clause. If your contractor goes bankrupt, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. That's going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible situation for you. So don't work with people that don't have a good reputation. Really that simple. And I mean, it could be, I would say don't work with people that you don't think have good moral character. That said, I mean, even somebody with good moral character can make a bad decision or two and find themselves having to declare bankruptcy. But yeah, if your builder goes to you, they go bankrupt, I mean, you can try to sue them, but most of the time the money will be in some sort of, getting the money back will many times cost, sorry, what I'm trying to say is like getting the money back will or can frequently cost more than what you'll actually get back. And again, like just because you've got a court order for somebody to pay you back $100,000, you still have to get the money. And I mean, there are ways to continue doing that, but it's not easy and it's not inexpensive for the most part. And again, like you can only get the money from somebody who has it. So if they ghost you, you got a chance of getting some money back. But if they declare bankrupt, you're screwed. And I really, 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 really feel terrible for anybody out there that gets caught in that. I know a couple of my builder friends got caught by a cabinet company that went belly up 2 or 3 years back. And these assholes, they continued taking deposits from contractors and people until the day before they declared bankruptcy. Like, what the hell? Like, that's terrible. Like, no, you're going to declare bankruptcy the next day, but you're taking money from people and up until the day before. Like, that is unconscionable. I don't understand how some people can be such pieces of shit, honestly. Like, I just don't get it. Like, some people's parents, I guess, right? I mean, people are moving through the world and they're terrible people like that. I mean, it's partially their fault, but I'm going to suggest it's mostly their parents' fault. That's my opinion anyways. All right, quality and aftercare. What does workmanlike manner really mean? So contracts often use this vague phrase. Clients want to know how they prove something is bad quality if it's technically functional. So probably the easiest way to like kind of consider workmanlike manner is it presentable? Does it look good from 6 feet away, right? 6 feet away under normal lighting situation is kind of sort of how we coach people to look at that stuff. You can get, and we have done work where we're more detailed and more on it than that. But, 6 feet away, regular light, not daylight. Good Lord, daylight is just the worst for any sort of paint issues. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, does it look good or does it not? I mean, the metric that I coach my team to work towards and what I'm forever pushing ourselves to do is to say, like, listen, dudes, like our mandate is to leave no work behind that somebody else can come in after the fact and criticize. Like, all I want other contractors to be able to do when they show up to a Sprucehill project after the fact is say, wow, these guys did a really good job. And, you know, that's what we're trying to work to. All right, so we got one more question in the chat here. What are some pros and cons of doing a renovation versus a new build? Well, that's like a how long is a piece of string question. Let's talk about it though. Pros of doing renovations. Let's start with pros. Pros of renovating over new builds. Sometimes cost. Sometimes you're able to maintain something that is no longer meeting current bylaws or building code, and it gets grandfathered in. You know, we see that when people have homes that don't conform to setbacks and their foundations are too close to property lines and that sort of thing, they tend to want to keep their foundation where it was. What are some other pros to renovating? Well, I mean, again, like if you're renovating, like you don't have to necessarily do the entire house. You could just do your kitchen. You could just do your bathroom. Renovating gives you the option of doing it on a project by project basis. So, you know, 1 year you do a bathroom, the next year you do another bathroom, the next year you do another bathroom, you know, 2 years later you do your kitchen. And so obviously it doesn't give you the instant new home effect, but it certainly makes it a little bit more financially palatable, depending on, you know, where you're at with things. Certainly with new construction, cost is a major negative. It's typically quite a bit more money than renovating. New construction requires or can require a lot more issues in terms of permitting and getting the permits to do these sorts of things. Although I'll tell you what, our beloved bureaucrats, they've done a pretty damn good job of making getting renovation permits almost as challenging as getting new build permits. So good for them. Like, it used to be renovation permits were easier to get than new build permits, but it seems to me like they have like evened out the playing field and they've made them both awful to get. So yeah, I don't know about permits on that. You know, certainly like one of the major benefits to building something from scratch is the fact that you can build exactly what you want, exactly how you want it, and you can get it done custom to your liking. And so, I mean, there's a lot of benefit to that, and being able to really relay out every room and think about all of the different spaces in your home and dial it in, right? So, you know, having a fully custom home that is, you know, designed and made specifically for you, you know, here at Sprucehill, we even go so far as to like talk to our clients about how high they want their countertops. Like, who gives a shit that industry standard is 36 inches tall if your client is 5'6"? Clients are 5'6", make the counters 34 inches. Way more comfortable. You know, but people don't talk about that much. But you can certainly do it on a custom build. Obviously, with a new home, you will get the 2510 new home warranty. So you'll have that peace of mind, which is nice for a lot of people to have. You know, the other thing that people also like to see is when they're looking at that MLS listing, when the home is for sale, people often look to see the age of the home. And so if you do a renovation, depending on the size of the renovation, it'll say the age, the original age of the house, but you can get it to say substantially renovated or massive renovation in whatever year. And that kind of sort of helps to make up for it on an MLS listing. But yeah, having a new home, that helps with that. But realistically, like, you know, we encourage people to renovate when it makes sense. The home that they have works enough. It makes sense enough. It just maybe needs some tweaking, a better layout or something like that. So you know, really and truly, the only way to know what you should do is to give us a call and find out and talk to the pros and learn from my team about what makes sense for you. We'll tell you, like, we want to make sure you're happy. So love for you to reach out, and you can always reach us on the web, sprucehill.ca, or you can call us at the office, 604-971-4899. That is my stream tonight. Listen, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you so much for the support and all the comments that came in this evening. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate everybody's support. If you haven't subscribed, I sure would appreciate you subscribing. In the meantime, stay awesome. See you next time. Bye now.